Hello, my name is Liz Wood and I'm a tax law forestry specialist with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. A tax law forestry specialist is a forester who administers the two forest tax programs we have here in Wisconsin, the Forest Crop Law Program and the Managed Forest Law Program. You may have heard of the Forest Crop Law Program, or Forest Crop as it's often called. The Forest Crop Law Program started in the late 1920s and ended in 1985 when the Managed Forest Law Program was created. There are only a handful of properties finishing their forest crop law commitments, and since 1985, all new properties are enrolled into the Managed Forest Law Program. There are many tools a family can use when legacy planning in their woods. Today I'd like to give you some background about the Managed Forest Law Program, or MFL for short, and talk about how it could be a useful tool for your family in planning your forest's management. So, what is MFL? MFL is a landowner incentive program which rewards landowners for sustainably managing their forests by reducing their property taxes. There are over 3 million acres enrolled across the state, and landowners choose to enroll their acreage for either a 25 or 50-year commitment, and then are required to have a forest management plan developed by a certified plan writer. A certified plan writer, or CPW for short, is an independent consulting forester who has a cooperative agreement with the Wisconsin DNR. That forester is trained on how to write MFL plans and is recertified annually on the specifics of the MFL program. CPWs work with the landowner to understand their goals and objectives for the property. It all starts with a visit to the property to collect forest inventory data and merge that data with the landowner's goals to create a management plan, scheduling harvests based on when the forest will need it most. The plan the CPW develops is submitted to the local tax law forestry specialist, who reviews the plan to ensure it follows the MFL program requirements before approving. Since land enrolled in the MFL program pays the MFL tax rates in lieu of their regular property taxes, the program is tied to the tax year. The deadline to have a plan submitted to the DNR for review is June 1 for the plan to take effect 6 months later on January 1st. Speaking of tax rates, landowners can choose to have some or all of their land in MFL designated as open or closed to public recreation, and there is an MFL tax rate for each of those designations. The MFL tax rates are based on statewide averages for productive forest lands, and the rate is recalculated every 5 years. Here in 2021, the current rate is $2.04 an acre for open lands, and $10.20 an acre for closed. To put that into perspective, $10.20 an acre for closed MFL lands is 25% of the statewide average for productive forest lands. In other words, it's a savings of around 75%. Lands that are open to public recreation must allow certain recreational activities to be accessible to the public by foot. The recreational uses are limited to hunting, fishing, hiking, sightseeing, and cross-country skiing. Giving the public this recreational opportunity is why the open MFL rate is so low. Currently, here in 2021, it is $2.04 an acre, which is only 5% of the statewide average tax rate for productive forest lands. Many landowners prefer to have their lands closed to public recreation, and the law allows each ownership up to 320 closed acres per municipality. Landowners are allowed to change their open-closed designation twice throughout their commitment, but since that will change the tax rate, the change is tied to the tax year and will take effect on January 1st. Not every property qualifies to be an MFL. There are some eligibility requirements that exist, including minimum parcel size and productivity. New entries into the MFL program must be 20 or more contiguous acres and not have any buildings on them, so a 20-acre piece of land with a cabin on it would not be allowed. A 21-acre property with a cabin on it could qualify by leaving 1 acre around the cabin out of MFL and enrolling the remaining 20 acres. A MFL entry must be 80% productive acres. These are acres that are capable of growing trees and will be managed for producing forest products. Having up to 20% of the acreage deemed as non-productive means that if there's an area of your property that is a prairie or lowland swamp that doesn't grow trees, a rocky outcrop that is too steep, or a cedar stand that is too wet to harvest on, or if there's a special part of your property you would prefer not to harvest on, those acres could be enrolled into MFL as part of the non-productive 20%. Now, MFL is not the right fit for everyone. We've got to remember what MFL stands for: Managed Forest Law. This is a forest management program, not a forest preservation program, and it means that up to 80% of your acreage will be managed for forest products, following the management plan developed by you and your certified plan writer. MFL is a great program for folks who are engaged in keeping their woods healthy and productive through active forest management. A common misconception about the program is that the DNR will just show up on your property with a logger one day, but that couldn't be further from the truth. When it's time for a harvest, you get to steer the ship. The DNR will remind you that your plan has a practice scheduled, and you get to choose the forestry professionals, the foresters and loggers you work with, and get to keep any proceeds from your timber sale. So, now that I've given some background on the MFL program, let's talk about how it can be used as a tool for your family in succession and legacy planning. Where do you see your family in 25 or 50 years? 25 or 50 years can seem like a long time, and you may have plans to pass on your land down to the next generation before then. A neat feature of the MFL commitment is it's tied to the land, not the landowner. So the MFL plan can be transferred if a change of ownership occurs. You may put the land into MFL and then give the land to your children one day. By filling out one simple form, the land continues to maintain the MFL tax rate for the remainder of the commitment. Simply put, by enrolling in MFL, your family can rely on a predictable and affordable tax rate on the property for the 25 or 50 years that the land is in the program. I've had landowners tell me that there's no way they could have retained their family land if it wasn't for the MFL tax rates. What do you hope your land looks like in 25 or 50 years? Since the MFL management plan can be a 25 or 50-year commitment, it lays out the groundwork for that length of time. Since the management plan forecasts harvests that may be needed through the length of the plan, your family can use this as a tool to forecast when extra income could be gained through a timber sale. That young stand of pine today could be a mature forest for your great-grandchildren, and the MFL plan provides guidance on how to keep it healthy and productive for generations to come. If part of your long-term vision for your woods is to have trees or wildlife shrubs planted that you and your kids and grandkids can enjoy, the MFL plan is the perfect vehicle for allowing you to apply for cost share funding through the state or federal government. There's a surprising amount of grant money available for folks who want to be good stewards on their land, and the first step in applying for those grants is having a management plan for the property. Have you ever wondered what your own parents or grandparents valued in land management, or what their property goals were? Since a portion of the MFL plan captures the landowner's goals and objectives for the property, you can stamp your legacy for future generations in the goals section of the plan. Recently, I gave a copy of the MFL plan to some adult children who had filed an MFL transfer on the land after their mom had passed. In the goals section, she had described how much she loved pileated woodpeckers and wanted to leave cavity trees during harvests so they would have a place to feed and nest. The kids knew how much their mom loved these birds, but reading that in the goals section of the plan gave them some comfort and some direction as they were taking over the management of the land. I'll admit, forest management can seem a little overwhelming at first. You love your land and want to be sure you're making the right decisions for it. Being in the Managed Forest Law program means you have access to professional foresters like myself who are there in your corner to offer professional guidance throughout your time in the MFL program. While I don't set up the timber sales or plant the trees, I connect landowners with local forestry professionals and serve as an unbiased third party that you can ask questions to along the way. Forest management is a very rewarding part of forest ownership, and I'm here to empower you and keep you in compliance with your MFL agreement. I hope this has been helpful and leads to conversations about the future of your land. If you're interested in learning more about the MFL program, we've got a lot of great resources for you. Check out www.dnr.wi.gov and keyword search MFL for more information. If you'd like to speak with somebody directly, contact your local DNR service forester, tax law forestry specialist, or a certified plan writer. We can be found by searching www.dnr.wi.gov, keyword search, Forestry Assistance Locator.